The lines are open 01154222186, hearing pros and cons of using marijuana, but because the Western Cape High Court had in effect endorsed the legalization of dagga in the privacy of your home. What do you make of this? You can give us a call. In studio, we're joined by Quinton van Kerken, an Anti-Drug Alliance South Africa CEO, Advocate Joseph Ngake, Omaile Ngake rather, Transform RSA lawyer, and Dereline James, an anti-drug activist and founder of the Yellow Ribbon Foundation, joins us on the phone. Mosiri Tsiane, South African Liberty Foundation chairperson with the Mosiri Attorneys, joins us on the phone as well. Good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining us. Of course, as an advocate or proponent of the use of marijuana, it does now rest with the Constitutional Court whether they will uphold the Western Cape's High Court decision. In your view, do you think that the arguments around the medicinal benefits of cannabis has been adequately understood and also generally accepted not only in medicine but in communities?
I think we have to look at the reality that the way people are seeing cannabis is changing dramatically in South Africa. I said something in another interview this morning. I said, if you don't like dagga, you're definitely not going to like the future, because it is going to be legalized. How and when is a very different story. This case is a big step towards it. I had a chat with Jules from the Dagga Cup a little bit earlier on, just before the interview, and there was a lot of interesting things that came out in the court date today, and we're very hopeful. The judges chided the state a number of times because they just simply haven't done their job properly, which is great. You never tell your enemies that they're doing badly.
Well, I suppose it does still rest on the final pronouncement from the Constitutional Court whether they will ratify the drug or not. But we also joined on the line by Martha, calling us from Klerksdorp. Good evening to you.
Hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm fine.
Martha, no. Your line is distorting. Can you please switch off your TV and continue?
Okay.
Atime TV nana.
Okay. Hello, ma'am.
Akhere.
Hello?
Rootweds.
Because bana ba rona, especially ba rona ba batho ba bantsho, ha ba tsuba dagga ba dira o kare ba tlhanya. They're getting crazy. They rape their people. They rape their own mothers. So I think it's not good idea to make dagga for permanent. So please help our children, because especially our children, the black children.
Yeah. Ruth Wheeler, thanks for calling me, Martha in Klerksdorp, saying that the use of dagga has led to violent conduct or behavior from young people, primarily in black communities. Dereline James, thanks so much for joining us. Just your view, and whether this particular debate needs to have a referendum or the Constitutional Court, what they need to consider for the rights of privacy to use the drug in your own space, vis-a-vis the level of violence that we see as a result of drug abuse.
Good day, and thank you so much for having me on the show this evening. I've always been of the opinion that, we're all for the legalization of medicinal purposes, but definitely not for recreational use. The situation, like the previous caller just explained now, in communities, when she said there's fights, there's all sorts of crazy stuff happening, that is our reality. Dagga is, the black child is being wiped out by dagga in communities, and that is what we are seeing daily. Dagga is your one of the ingredients that all these people are smoking nyaupe with. So it's your foundation to smoke all of these other, even the dagga that's being grown now. It's not being grown the way it used to back in the day when sort of our parents used to smoke it. It's being laced with all sorts of things. And what guarantees do we have that we're going to get pure dagga? What guarantees do we have that the regulations in place will actually protect our children in our communities? And also, we say, we're going to have regulations and it will be much better. Look at alcohol. Look at cigarettes. How do we sort of assure our parents that it's going to work for Dagga when we're not even able to control alcohol and cigarettes.
Yeah, please stay on the line, Darylene. Just a response from Quinton in that, especially the dangers, inherent dangers of Dagga also leading or as a gateway to other drug use. If there are no controls or measures in place, it will continue to erode the moral fiber, and not only that, lead to more violent behavior from users.
I don't think that the statement is properly qualified, and Darylene actually hit the nail on the head, which I'm quite happy about. She said Dagga is mixed with something else to make nyope. Now it's mixed with heroin. Now as soon as you change, obviously. If you mix alcohol with drain cleaner, it's going to do something with you. If you mix alcohol with heroin, it's going to do something with you. As soon as you mix anything, it's never a good idea. And she, quite rightfully so. One of the big things that we're worried about is quality. That's the nice thing about regulation. We've actually said that Dagga should be able to be legally grown. Pretty much, it should grow out in the wild, in your garden, whatever.
Quentin, we have another caller, Felix in Mpumalanga, Mbombela, or rather Mbombela. We have Gwena in Cape Town as well. Hello, Felix.
Thank you, Cindy, for taking my call.
What's your comment or question?
Yes, I think the fundamental principle we are discussing here is the freedom to choose whatever you want to use. And that is the fundamental principle we are discussing. Now, you cannot tell me what to use or what not to use for as long as I don't come to your house to beg for money or borrow money or destroy you in any way. And that is the fundamental principle we are discussing. You cannot say because cars have killed a lot of people in this country, then we must ban the use of cars. You cannot tell me that because cigarettes have killed so many people in this country, then we must ban the use of cigarettes. Let people choose for themselves. This is the principle we are discussing here.
Felix, thank you so much for that. And I think that's what the court will have to deliberate on the rights of users to choose whichever drug or vice they have, vis-a-vis the rights of communities that are opposing it. In Cape Town, Gwena, good evening to you.
Good evening, Cindy. Gwena here. The thing, if you can remember, our forefathers, when they made a peace treaty, they used Dagga to welcome the Europeans. So it's just a financial thing that's happening with it, because Dagga can grow anywhere in South Africa, in any yard, in any person's home. So it can even cut the use of cigarette, but they just wanna prohibit for the use. There's medicine, there's good medicines in Dagga, and each and every South African can use it for free. But commercially, they're making a whole lot of money through tobacco. That's why they will never allow Dagga to be legalized.
All right,
But
another dimension to that argument.
Countries like Holland, it's legal. They use Dagga. They can carry like 100 grams of Dagga and whatever. And there's shops where they sell Dagga where people can.
No, I can tell you, from personal experience, that is indeed true. Let's take Kagiso in Kimberley. Hello to you.
Hello, Cindy.
Ahe, Kagiso.
Lekaima.
Everything lekarar.
Cindy, now I'm caught in between. I'm a professional boxer. I don't drink or smoke. But with my analyzation of these drugs, I think, to be honest, alcohol is more dangerous than cannabis. From my observation, from what I see, I don't see why it should not be legalized, because when I Google, I can see it's working for medical purposes and all of that. And if you're going to say weed is dangerous.
Yeah. What about the other potent sins, if you want to call it that? Kagiso, thanks so much. Masiritsiane, thank you so much for your time as well. Just constitutionally speaking, and the Concord would have to satisfy that this particular ruling doesn't encroach on another's rights without depriving the proponents of Dagga their choice. In your view, is this as simple as it gets, or is it rather more complicated?
I think it's as simple as it gets. This is how it is, that we all have rights, and we've got to protect each other's rights. My right might not necessarily please you as much as your right might not necessarily please me. We've got various religions. The Rastafarians have a right to exercise what they perceive to be within their own religion, necessary practices that they do. Be that as it may, that the Constitution has to view that, and at all times, compare and balance. Say in these instances that indeed the Rastafarians have the right to practice what they deserve to be practicing. And that if they deserve to be practicing the medicinal purposes, in this instance the usage of dacha, they will be given that right. It's their right to do that.
All right, just stay on the line, please. Busari Dion in PE, good evening to you. Thanks for calling.
Good evening. Hi. You know what? We need to really face reality here. Wherever you look at crime has been escalating so high already. And all these things are normally driven with drugs. We all know, yes, it's got medicinal privileges and advantages, but we also don't want to face reality that we don't have control over it when people start using it, and when they start abusing it, then we have this crime escalation. So the reality is, you feel other countries allowed, then go to those countries. Go live there and smoke a dacha, but don't make your problem the problem for the rest of the country. Because we got enough crime, we got all these things happening all over the world. In Cape Town, what is it that we still don't understand about dacha?
All right, Dion saying he's anti-dacha and the effects that it's had on communities. Last call on this is Tabiso. Good evening to you.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. A few previous, I think it was the first caller and other callers, they're talking about crime with dacha. I do not understand that. How does dacha make someone violent? I don't think dacha makes people violent, because all I know, people who smoke dacha are very relaxed. No one smokes dacha and goes out there and causes violence. It doesn't happen.
All right, mixed reaction there, Tavi, so thanks so much. But the irony of all is that we permit alcohol and cigarettes, which have more lasting effects health-wise, and yet this natural herb, we're against it. Rengake, just help us understand, in terms of the law, what the Constitutional Court is bound to declare on.
Hey, good evening, Cindy. Yeah, no, the court will have to make a determination as to whether the effect of dacha to the right of the individual, the right to privacy, the use thereof for medicinal and related activities. And for those cases where they use it for recreational purposes, surely the court will take cue from what has been the practice from other international countries. But critical to it is, to what extent will that have an impairment to the ability for an individual to make use, to be able to perform potent services required in respect of work so assigned? And if it was to be found to be actually having a negative effect, that will have consequential influence to the decision making by that human being. Surely the court will have to determine the difference thereof. And the issue of legality, Cindy, it's common cause that there's been a practice where legalizing dacha in some instances is key. If a professional is using dacha for medicinal purposes, possession thereof is not legal. But for those who use it against the law, is indeed criminalized. And the court will surely apply their minds in terms of.
Yeah, but we also have to be cognitive of the effects in certain violent communities. Darylene James herself having extended a cry for help to the presidency to deal with the violent crimes relating to drugs, so that they too would have to count. Darylene, I mean, in your opinion, should the court decide to uphold the Western Cape High Court's decision, what is your recourse? What do you do next?
I'm not sure where that's going to leave us, because like I've been saying from the word go, you know what, we hear all these fancy stories of what it can do, and the reality is for us, we see a lot of children that start smoking dacha at a very young age, whose brain is obviously not developed, and we see them battling, going into acute psychosis, we see them being manic, we see all of those sort of behaviors on a daily basis in our community, and we find that some of these manic behaviors is not when it's mixed with other drugs. It is actually pure dacha. All I'm saying is, are we worried about the child, or the South African child? How do we have their interest at heart? Is this really necessary? Do you think our country needs this? Do we not have enough already that we are dealing with as a country?
All right, we did say we're taking last calls on this. Peggy, you'll be our final caller on this one, calling us from MLO. Good evening to you.
uyazi ukuthi ngiqala ukukhathazela ngithola amakhoto ethala republic ukhuluma athatha lento egulisa abantu ayoba ukhuluma ngayo bachitha isikhathi kunamakhesi angayo eSouth Africa la ngihlala khona kunabantu abaningi mina aba-confused ngalento le umuntu bengiphila naye manje ngina 59 years umuntu bengiphila naye ngemaze ayibhema lento namhlanje sebalala estradini bangizolile bahlala kanjani ekriphula umqondo wabantu ngina 100% sure.
Okay, thank you so much, Babu Begi, saying that it does have an impact on your cognitive ability and effects thereof. He's seen it in his own community. We cannot deny that people react differently from various forms of stimulus. But how do we keep a balance to ensure that the likes of Darylene are protected, or at least their voice is also heard?
I think what we have to be cognizant of the fact that anything that changes the way that you think or do things can be harmful. Anything, alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be. We have to look, though, in the greater sense on which is more harmful, which is least harmful. And where we're at right now, we realize that cannabis is a lot less harmful than many of the other things out there. We're not saying that it's not harmful, we're saying that it's less harmful. And with regulation comes responsibility. And it will be our responsibility once we regulate to make sure that things are done properly. Yes, we want quality stuff out there. Yes, we want to see people get their lives back. We don't want to see people stuck on it. These are all things that we can really look at with regulation. Right now, it's a free-for-all. With regulation, you're able to actually control things.
Yeah, and there's the contradiction, as we mentioned, around cigarette smoking and alcohol being more harmful, Mr. Tsiane. In your view, I mean, would the court now have to compare, almost on a scientific level, what the impact of the various drugs or substances are before making a determination?
Just two aspects which are key here is that when you are able to control, I would likely to agree with the latter caller that when you, or rather the latter speaker, that when you are having regulations and your control, you have financial muscles to control. It's not that you go to Holland, it's a free-for-all. Any house that you can walk in, you'll find that somebody is just having dacha. Every shop that you walk in, you can have dacha. No. There are licensed restaurants, there are licensed areas. Those that are unlicensed are permanently not allowed to sell or distribute dacha. So in essence is that we are looking here at South particular that you would have a situation where radical economic transformation must play a role. There has to be instances where businesses are allowed, that a specific business will be given specific license to either sell. In that way, you're controlling it, and you'll also be punishing those that are selling it in a form of taxation, in controlling it, in that way creating even more jobs. So we should not look at this thing in isolation and not really seeing that it's going to provide work, it's going to provide opportunities, and it's going to provide more regulation. It's not a free-for-all. So in that way that you would say that the Constitutional Court has to look and balance it all. The same way that you would not sell alcohol anywhere you go. Whoever sells alcohol currently has to have a license. If you're not licensed, you cannot. You cannot just walk around with alcohol in your hand. You'll be arrested. So we have regulation that is already in place. We need to find out how do we regulate and control even the use. Because currently, if you're not regulating it, you don't even have finances to control
and it's still circulating. Mosiri Tsiane from South, as the chairperson and Mosiri Attorneys, thank you indeed for your time. And Rengaka Advocate Ngake, the case about the significance of this particular matter, considering that we have bigger issues to deal with. One caller, I think from Kwakwa, saying, you know, this is, we shouldn't be wasting the resources of the courts with this matter.
No, Cindy, this is a constitutional state, a law. Therefore, the law must be appreciated when issues are coming against each other, societal problems against individual problems. And if from the individual decision making, the effect thereof has potential to harm the society, it's incumbent on the court to apply their mind to it. But to the extent that that decision will have serious effect to consequential value it has to the society, is when that court will not take a decision. If, for example, use of cannabis for all purposes of medicinal is of utmost importance for the society, surely there's a reason for the court to consider that. And if the use thereof for recreational purposes is indeed a need for it, there's nothing wrong for the court to apply the amount to it. But key to it is to what extent will have an effect to ability to take decisions when you've taken in the cannabis. And the legality, I mean, is undoubtedly illegal practice. And to the extent that the society will see value into the financial thereof, surely we're looking forward for that decision.
All right. If I were to make an assessment, it sounds that there's a probability that the court will act in favor of the Western Cape High Court decision, but that's just my view. It may just be different. But thanks so much to our guests, Quinton van Kerken, Anti-Drug Alliance South Africa CEO, and Advocate Maile Ngage, Transform RSA lawyer, and Darlene James, anti-drug activist and founder of the Yellow Ribbon Foundation, Mosiritiane, South African Liberty Foundation chair. And you at home, thanks indeed for taking the trouble to call in. We'll continue on social media at ANN7 TV. We're back after this break.